Hello, good afternoon, Nidhi madam. Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you, ma'am?
Very well.
So, pleasure meeting you after a long time.
Yes.
Hmm. Ma'am, participants will be joining slowly. We will take another 5 minutes. Good afternoon.
Okay, I'll just stay off video and mute myself till then. Yeah. Whenever you ask me to start, then I'll start.
So, pleasure meeting you after. Perfect, perfect, madam. We'll do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm giving a session. They forgot and then
Madam, we will start. The participants will be joining slowly because all the participants are from the faculty group. Okay. They have to. They will be engaged in classes or labs. Okay. So they will be joining slowly. Anyway, we will start this. Okay. So with your permission, let me start ACHARYA 3.0, which is the third cohort of faculty development program to the entrepreneurship, especially to the faculty members of AICSKU academic partners. So we have selected only 5 colleges, and we requested the college management to give us the dedicated and enthusiastic faculty where they will become our bridge to find out or scout innovators from their college, innovative mindset student teams from their colleges. So this is the main motto of this Acharya. And what we are looking in this Acharya is, and the faculty members should be capable of training or mentoring the student teams after this Acharya program, madam. So this is the whole essence of Acharya program.
Sure.
Coming to the introduction of Nidhi Mehta ma'am. Okay, so there is a lot, and even 1 hour is not enough to introduce Nidhi Bhatia Mehta. Okay, I'm very much proud, and I'm very much proud to introduce Nidhi Bhatia Mehta, who is an award-winning entrepreneur. Also, she is a serial entrepreneur, and now she is the founder of Self Achievers, which is a edtech company. So not only that, there are a lot of different phases that Nidhi Mehta, and there are a lot of masks, like so based on the time and the situation, she used to go through, and she will expose all those skills. Okay, so apart from the entrepreneur, and she is a good educator, facilitator, and trainer, and also she's also an author and podcaster. And believe me, she has a lot of other things, like she is also a TEDx speaker, so let me go through a few things. Like I have just captured few things of Nidhi Bhatia Mehta, and I will be giving just glimpse of such things. She is an adventurer basically. So, and she has several areas of interest. Okay, so and she is from Silicon Valley, and she started a company there itself. And she is a business strategist, digital marketing guy, and branding specialist, and whatever, everything. Okay, so the her mission is to convert 10K homemakers, women especially, okay, into the business by 2032. With timeline, she kept that goal. Okay, so through entrepreneurship and innovative models, what is. Okay, and she trained almost 10,000 trainees through the wellness and entrepreneurship coaching. And uh, she's a she's globally organizes a lot of workshops. She almost organized 58 workshops. Also, she has attended a lot of events globally. So around 45 she has attended. And yeah, even you can collaborate with them, with the company on Nidhi Bhatia Mehta Madam also. So I think I have given the LinkedIn profile of today's speaker. You have gone through that. So without any delay, so I welcome you, madam, to Acharya 3.0. Okay, so the stage is yours. So good. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chandra. And I wanted to say a very warm welcome and thank you to each one of you who is present here for the session. It absolutely goes on to show the dedication that we have towards taking our learning to the next level, so that we can become better trainers, more effective teachers, and more effective facilitators to create a more nurturing ecosystem for our students who aspire to become entrepreneurs and who can be the next big disruptors and create some really amazing solutions to make this world a better place. So I really want to firstly say thank you to each one of you. I also have a sincere request. If you're able to switch on your video, please do so. It's always nice to see some faces rather than just blank screens. You can keep yourself on mute. And if you have any questions through whatever I present or I say, please put it on the chat box. In the last 20 minutes, I would like to address each of those questions. And these questions sometimes don't even have to be related to the presentation or the topic we touch on today, but anything that you may have which is relating to entrepreneurship. How do we do this with the students? How can we make it better? How can we make it more engaging? You can just put it in the chat box and we can just discuss generically also any challenges or any hurdles that you have been facing through your journey in being able to deliver these lessons. So I'll give you, like Dr. Chandra said, very short snippet about myself, that I personally have been an entrepreneur for 20 years. So straight out of my B school, I went to work with a consulting firm called McKinsey & Company. And after 18 months, I moved to the US. I left my job, and the next thing that I knew, I had my own company. And I had no clue, and I'm telling you this because you will deal with students like me, I was completely non-ambitious. I had no idea of what I wanted to do and what I was going to do. So sometimes you will come across students who like the concept of entrepreneurship, but they feel they don't have an idea. They don't know what to do. And sometimes as mentors and faculty, by just helping them by asking them a few questions, making them answer those questions, can bring clarity of thought to them as to what is it that they can really do and put their skill sets towards a successful venture. So I became an entrepreneur, and I was very fortunate that the first company that I started in Silicon Valley, California, actually just grew and grew exponentially in 3 years. And in 3 years, I was able to sell it. And in that, I had no funding. I mean, I didn't have to take any assistance through external funding. And I became financially sustainable on my own. Once I sold the company in Silicon Valley, I had moved to Asia. I restarted the company. So what happens is, once somebody sees little bit of success in the venture that they do or in the company that they have created, they get a lot of confidence. And I'm telling you, I've been a child of having very low self-confidence, always living in self-doubt, to overnight becoming a person who was suddenly very confident of every decision she was taking. Or she knew that whatever I do, I'll take it through. So you have to see in your students what is it emotionally that they are suffering from. Maybe they are suffering from lack of confidence. Maybe they are suffering from this family pressure that, becoming an entrepreneur is a risky business, right? You don't know how the money will come, when the money will come, what is the sustainability, what is the continuity. So a lot of times when the family puts this pressure on us, why can't you take a regular corporate job and just, have a 9 to 5 job like a normal person? We have to leave our aspirations and take that. So you have to, as a faculty, take into a lot of these factors in account before you really start to mentor or you start to see your student in the light of their potential and the ability to take up entrepreneurship. That's my only request. So, like I was telling you, I moved to Singapore. I started the company there. It's still ongoing, 20 years, and I've been in the space of wellness and fitness. In 2012, I moved back to India when I started this e-commerce company. So in the product sector, which was in the baby segment, baby and child. And for 7 years, I ran it, brought it again to a 3x revenue model, and then finally exited because there was a point in the company where it absolutely needed external funding to flourish. And I didn't want to take external funding and I didn't want to be in that scenario. So I exited, and since then I've been in the ecosystem of helping other startups because I feel I've been very fortunate to have seen successes company after company, both in product and service. So I felt, can I bring my skill sets, my experiences, what worked for me to other startups who are aspiring to go global, to become successful, give them the chance to be successful by not making mistakes that other startups make, by making sure that they take a path which is a much more, I would say, tested path that will get them to become financially sustainable, monetize their revenues well, so that whether they get external funding or not, they can still survive. End of the day, as faculty, we always have to tell our students one thing. Because of so much of advent of funding, I think a lot of students think entrepreneurship means funding. So, sir, I want to become an entrepreneur. How will I get funding? No, we have to change their mindset to think entrepreneurship doesn't mean just taking funding. Entrepreneurship means starting a business and making it financially sustainable on its own. And then you take funding if you think you need to scale and grow and you need a lot of money to do that. Otherwise, grow on your own like the traditional businesses did. And at least try and show it to yourself that you're able to become profitable with bootstrapping and with your own business acumen. And that is what we have to teach them, and that is what we have to facilitate with them when they build their business plans. So today's topic is social innovation versus technological innovation. So what I have done is I've done distinctions between the both, and I've given some very strong cases on what social innovation is all about. So we get a better understanding of it and what technological innovation is all about and how do both marry themselves together to create a more effective tool in the community. So I'll just start to share my screen so it's easier for me to then share. Just a moment. Just going to go and open the presentation here. Yeah. Okay. So this is something we're going to do today. Today's topic is social innovation versus technology innovation. And please, if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to keep putting it in the chat box so we don't forget about it or it doesn't get lost. So what I said right at the outstart, we have to see both these, are they completely different approaches, or do they complement each other to be a more effective and solid approach towards better growth and being more effective towards scaling entrepreneurs? What is social innovation? Let's start with that. So social innovation, the key line factor is it helps to improve something in our lives. Okay, it can help to improve convenience in our lives. It can help to improve health in our lives. It can help to improve the standard of living of our lives. Anything which has an effect on the community level, a social impact on the larger community level, would be termed as social innovation. It is referred to as a process of developing and implementing new and effective solutions, right? So, solutions that can disrupt or that can create some really big impact work in the social sector, in the social arena, as well as the environmental arena. So, something that we do, like we say, bringing in solar energy or alternate sources of energy has been a disruptor. It is a social innovation because it has helped us to reduce our reliance on the fossil fuels and move to renewable energy sources, which are more sustainable and which in the long term won't harm the planet. So that's a social innovation. It's an environmental innovation, right? It helps the environment, the planet. Social innovation would always have a long-term impact at a large scale. So when a startup does some work that helps to reduce poverty levels in a community, it's having a long-term impact. That means once the poverty is reduced, people's standard of living will go up, which means that their children will have better access to education, which means that they will have a better chance of getting good sustainable employment or having equal opportunities like other children. So it has very long-term impact and ripple effects, because today what you sow through your social innovation will become a huge tree over time, and it will shelter a lot more people, so that one seed can become shade for thousands and thousands of people. So it's a large-scale impact-driven innovation. It is traditionally, it used to be, when we talked about social innovation, we always thought of non-profit organizations. We always said, oh, if it's something to do with social, if somebody wants to do something for the poor or something for the animals, it must be a non-profit. No. Now the business community, you have social enterprises. Social enterprises are for-profit enterprises. They have the same goal as any other company to make a profit, to make income, to have revenues, to be accountable to their stakeholders. But the work that they do is inspired and it has a very strong social impact element to it. So whatever they do through their work, through the delivery, it will never harm the planet. It will always have the goal and the motivation or the mission for the betterment of the community. And that's how they drive themselves. So it's no more restricted to just a non-profit sector. It can absolutely be a for-profit company. It can be called a social enterprise, which is working for profit, but with the purpose and mission of making a social impact in the society and community through their work. Social innovation sometimes is also mistaken like as though it's something to do with charity, right? No, it's nothing to do with charity. It is just more associated with a noble cause. So social innovation is actually adding one extra dimension. So we already had innovation, we had economic growth, we had, okay, we should have overall social growth, and now we are adding another dimension where we are saying it needs to have a long-term impact on the community. It's a social innovation, right? So the whole idea or the driving factor behind social innovation is how do we make whatever is available better for the future of the planet, for the future of the next generation, for the nature, for the flora, fauna, all of it. How can we all sustainably live together by making some innovations that can really, really impact the world at large? So if that is social innovation, you may ask, what is then technological innovation? Technological innovation is a new or improved product or a technological process that is an improved factor from what they may have been existing before, or it's a complete disruption of a certain sector where you're using technology to completely change the way that sector works. So these technological innovations can either make a process better, which already exists. It can make the functioning of a product better, the product that already exists, or it can be a completely new innovation that changes the way things work around in the society, whether in a product form, whether in the way we teach, whether in the way we eat, in the way we drive, travel, any of that, right? Those are hardcore. And if you use technology to empower this innovation, they're technological innovations. Now, a lot of that has been already brought to market. You can see there are a lot of product innovations. There have been process applications. So every new software that we use, every new tool that we are using, all of that, right, is an innovation. And there is always something coming better and better that makes the work much faster to do, to process, that makes the ability, like say something like video calling. Earlier, people had to book trunk calls to make a call from here to anywhere overseas. It was so expensive. It took so long. Somebody made a technological innovation through which they could actually, with it, we can have voiceovers through WhatsApp calling or through video chats. And now think about it. Somebody could be sitting in the Arctic, Antarctic, anywhere in the world, but if they have internet connection, you can speak to them for free. There is no cost to it, and there is no hindrance to it. There is no obstacle. The lines are clear. All goes over IP. So what it has enabled for us is to be able to communicate more effectively in a more cheaper manner. That has been the revolution, right? That's been an innovation through technology. So what is the main difference between a social and a technological innovation? I'll just summarize it because they are not that many. One of the major differences is one, that like I said, social innovations are more driven by wanting to change certain things that are there in our society as a social practice, right? So it could be eradication of poverty, but it doesn't have to necessarily use technology to do that. So it could be a social enterprise or a social impact non-profit, which is working at the grassroots level, not necessarily using technology or not through a technological innovation, but working with certain practices that can help to reduce or eradicate poverty, or that can help to bring education equality to all, right? So that could be a social innovation. Whereas technological innovation is absolutely associated and its foundation is laid on the usage of technological by the virtue of the name that it has, right? So how can technology disrupt the market? How can technology change the way a product is used? How does technology change the way a service is used or a service is provided, right? All of those are technological tools. Now, again, like I said, a social innovation does not necessarily need to have a technology element to it. And the same way, a technological innovation doesn't necessarily have to have a social angle to it. So they both can exist separately without being reliant on each other. Technological innovations, they have accelerated, like I've written, the emergence of new solutions to existing social problems on one hand. So that means that there are a lot of solutions. So say there is a startup, right, that started to work on the 911 concept of US, that you call and within 9 minutes or within 7 minutes, whatever they claim, there will be an ambulance at your doorstep to give you immediate critical health care, right? So that a patient's life can be saved. Now, that is really helping the way we are going to look at healthcare into our system. Earlier, that didn't exist. A lot of people lost their lives because the traffic, they were stuck, or they didn't have immediate health care that was provided to them and which was so necessary, right? While all of this, right, is a part of your social innovation, there are technological innovations that have really sped up the way, say, education reaches marginalized sections of the society. A lot of students today who didn't have resources sitting in a rural area to become a scientist or to become an astrophysicist, today, because of the advent of technology, they are able to study those subjects from the best colleges of the world through courses on Coursera or edX or any of these, and be able to create specialization to further their interest for that subject if they have a keenness to it. So no more are they required that, oh, only if you go to an to a Harvard or to a MIT or to IIS or any of these institutions can you learn. You can now also learn remotely. So what has that done? Brought a level of equal opportunity to those who desire it. But at the same time, it has also in some cases created some amount of inequality, because now children who absolutely come from very lower income backgrounds or marginalized sections of the society who don't have digital gadgets or enablement to be able to use these resources for their benefits, they are getting left behind. So the divide may get stronger and bigger if you're not able to combat the problem of providing digital access to each and every person in our country. Right? So while technology has brought a lot of good, we also have to keep in mind and be very mindful and aware that we have to use technology also to uplift the other sections of the society so that the divide doesn't become stronger. And we don't have that kind of that this is like somebody really below the poverty line and above. If we want to make an all-inclusive society, we have to use technology to overcome any hindrances that stand on the way to create that ecosystem for inclusion. Social innovations may be accomplished where technology is used to remove redundancy and create frugal innovation, which creates optimization. So what happens here is, to explain this sentence, that we can use technology in social innovations as an enablement, as an enabler, right? As a means to enable improvement in a particular way to provide a service or a product. Technology can be used in a very empowering way to be able to sell a product. It can be used in a very powerful way to reach the masses earlier that you could not reach, or who live in very remote areas. It can be used to remove redundancy. That means something that is not useful at all. You can remove that through technology by creating strong processes. That's something that a computer can do. It can help us to use our resources much more efficiently, spending less and getting more from less by optimizing those resources, and then ensuring that we can actually expand and scale in a much more effective manner. So in that sense, if we bring social innovation and technology together hand in hand, it can create amazing results for the society as well as for the startups, for the world at large. Technological innovations, like I said, can exist without a social impact at play. So they can be independent, right? It doesn't have to have a social angle to it. However, like I said, even a social innovation can exist without technology enablement, but for it to be really effective and have a very large scale impact, technology enablement becomes a must. And technology is that one tool that can really help us to scale at a much larger level with very few resources. Few resources of people, few resources of gadgets, few resources of financial implications. So if all the startups start to use technology as whether they are tech startups or non-tech startups, especially non-tech startups or social startups, they have to use technology in a very creative way that can enable their growth and impact in a much more effective and a speedy way. And that's when they can really make an impact in a very short time and become visible, gain recognition, gain acceptability, and really start to make a difference where it's required. Now, in social innovation, we also have now a lot of corporates who are becoming very mindful and aware, especially after the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals got released. A lot of the corporates have committed to making sure that they are also committing to social innovation practices in their own domains inside the corporate. So now you may have heard two terms. One is corporate social innovation, and a lot of times we hear something called CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. And there are separate departments in corporates where you have separate CSR, heads who take care of, okay, the company has made so much profit, so much, this percentage of those profits will go into our CSR work, which is as a corporate, I have a social responsibility towards the community where I'm working or towards the world at large as a community for the problems that exist in the world. So can I contribute my resources, financial resources, people resources, time resources, technology enablement resources to mitigate these problems or to address these problems? Okay, so sometimes the corporate social responsibility a lot is to do more on the financial side. That yes, the companies have a lot of financial muscle. So can they sponsor or can they aid other non-profit organizations who are working for a certain cause and who actually have dearth of funds by sponsoring them so that they can scale and go further in their cause? So that becomes a marriage of the corporate sector with the non-profit sector to deliver very effective results. One brings the financial muscle and the technology resources, the other brings the cause and the connection at the grassroots level where these changes have to be made. What is corporate social innovation? Corporate social innovation basically refers to company that integrates social innovation in their business activity. Now, what does that mean? That means now I'm just hoping all of you have at some point of time ordered something from Amazon at some point of the time or the other. And I'll take the Amazon example because I've seen the change with my own eyes. So about 5 years ago, my son wrote a letter to Jeff Bezos, right? Because I am a big online delivery person. I, work 8 hours usually, back to back. And I feel that the way I can really manage my time effectively is that for things that I don't really need to run and burn petrol to go outside and buy, which can be delivered to my house with ease, where I'm assured of certain good quality, I know which brands I'm buying, why don't I use that? And it gives you free delivery. So pretty much everything, I would say 98% of anything that is used in my house comes through online ordering. A lot of it, that I would say percentage of that comes from Amazon. Now earlier, Amazon used to pack, say, one toothpaste in this big carton with tons and tons of packaging, bubble paper, right? Plastic paper, and they would send. And you would open this big box and you would wonder, what did I order that is so big? When the package used to come and you open and you realize that in that big box, there is this little toothpaste. And if I have ordered 20 products, they are sending one product separately from different locations, right? So my son, I think he was 9 years old that time or 10 years old. He wrote a letter during Christmas to Jeff Bezos that I absolutely love Amazon because I think it has made my mother's life very easy. And she always talks about Amazon business model and look the way it is changing people's lives by providing convenience and bringing more sellers into the global platform, all of that. He says there's one thing I wish Amazon would do different. I wish Amazon would not waste so much in packaging material, because it is not even recycled properly. We do not know what to do with these boxes, and it just goes into trash because we don't have a proper ecosystem of packaging. Even if, of disposal. So even if I give it to the kabadiwala, we don't know whether he's putting it through proper recycling or it's going into one faceted trash bin, right? This was his letter. So I think it reached the Amazon HQs, and my son was called in to meet with the president of Amazon India, right? And we all went with him. And there, my son Arjun, he brought up his thing, and he said that I really wish we can come up with some innovative ways where we can recycle this packaging, or maybe you can get the packaging picked up again so you can reuse those boxes because they are such nice boxes, and all of that. So while they acknowledged it, that the thought is really nice, the concept is nice, but there's a huge cost to getting it picked up. Now, over time, what I have seen in the last 5 or 6 years, if you've noticed it yourself, from making the plastic dockets, right? When you order books, they send some things in the dockets, which are like the courier dockets. It has changed to brown paper dockets, which is recyclable much easily, right? The second thing, now they have created that option where you can bundle up your entire shopping for the week and it will be delivered to you one day all together, 25 things. That means they can create efficiency of packaging in one box or two boxes rather than sending 20 separate boxes every single day. So it saves the time and efficiency of a delivery. It saves the energy of the delivery boy because it doesn't have to come 20 times. It makes you feel good because you feel that somewhere you're not contributing to the waste of the environment, because there's a petrol wastage because of that one toothpaste, there's packaging wastage, there is a box wastage, tons of things happen, right? And labor wastage because such a big box has to be packaged, so much sellotape has gone, everything is wasted, right? Extra resources. So they've done that. So what they have done is corporate social innovation, that they're continuously innovating to make their processes better so that it can be completely eco-friendly for the environment, eco-friendly for the community, provide convenience to their customers, as well as have the lowest carbon footprint or zero carbon footprint. And a lot of the corporates now are moving towards gauging what their carbon footprint is through all their practices and how they can reduce it. And they have active, productive measures now that, okay, this department is having a carbon footprint of so and so. So there, when we talk about the reviews, right, the annual reviews will also have a certain portion, a portion to how were they able to innovate to reduce their carbon footprint. So that is corporate social innovation. A lot of the companies now, you'll see they're moving from plastic packaging to glass packaging, or to any alternative way of packaging which is recyclable or which has been upcycled. That means some people have used plastic bottles to make cardboard boxes or bags. Some people use the wasted fabrics from factories to make their packaging material, right? So people are coming up with innovative solutions to create innovative, sustainable packaging. And that overall creates a full cycle of what we call the circular economy, which means everything is done in a socially responsible way. And wherever the process starts from, it will completely complete its 360 degrees and end over there. And will completely go back into the soil, be degraded naturally, and will not harm the planet at all. So that is corporate social innovation, to create social impact and sustainable practices in their own business activities while they work for profit and for customer satisfaction. So I've explained what corporate social responsibility is. I've explained to you what social innovation is, right? And like I said, CSR covers 4 main areas: philanthropy, which means they use a lot of the financial resources they have to help or to aid NGOs who can make a impact at the grassroots level. The other area that they could really work towards is environment or human rights issues to make sure there's gender inclusion, gender equality, no child labor involved. All these are very strong social responsibility measures with corporates, right? And economic responsibility to make sure there is health and wellness plans for the employees, for people who are working with them in factories to make sure that they have good, healthy conditions of working, they get a fair wage, there are ethical business practices, all of that. Now, what contributes to the success of corporate social innovation? It's a very short slide. I just wanted to touch upon it because when we mentor startups who ultimately will become bigger organizations, right from the beginning, we have to seed this thought into them that whatever you do, you have to be a socially responsible company. From your packaging to the way you hire to the way you provide services to your employees or your customers, everything must have a socially thought out solution and must have a positive impact towards the community and the planet and not otherwise. We cannot live in isolation anymore because customers will stop to use our products if we are not socially responsible companies. So one is to have a strategic intent, which is what I'm telling you, that right from the beginning, the entire business plan, when they plan their packaging, they plan their deliveries, everything should have that strategic intent to ensure that they're going to have social responsibility embedded in each of their business practices, which means they're not going to harm the planet. They're going to tackle social inequalities, gender inclusion. Can we take care of, maybe health and wellness of our employees more seriously, right? Our product design should be done in such a way that it is ergonomic, it doesn't cause harm to anybody, that it actually is sustainable over time. It is not using, requires cutting out of trees or cutting out of plants or, animal testing. All of that has to be thoughtfully thought that we're not going to do this. So that means, and one of the very amazing examples of the strategic intent is performance with purpose. And I read about this when I was reading Indra Nui's latest book. And there she talks about that she introduced performance with purpose. Initially, some people resisted. They didn't think how it's going to add to the top line. But now it's become the core philosophy for PepsiCo. So that means that why we need to perform, why we need to be very focused on the profits that we are gaining so that we're able to survive, expand, provide shareholder value and take care of our customers. It must be done with the strategic intent of the right purpose. And then everything will fall into place beautifully. Profit with social responsibility, which means you can identify areas where problems have not been addressed, right? And then maybe come up with certain products and services additionally in your resources to go and address them innovatively so that it can actually make an impact towards the lives of the others who are actually suffering. Now, sharing some examples of social innovation to make the understanding better, that here, okay, this is a very interesting example that I'm going to share with you. Danone, right? They wanted to enter the Asian market. They wanted to enter the Bangladesh market. So they came up with a very interesting way of entering the market. They didn't introduce the regular product into the market. What they did was, so there's a very big NGO that works at the grassroots level in Bangladesh. It's called Grameen in Bangladesh, right? And in Senegal, they worked with something called Lemateki. And it's truly a masterpiece of how they've been able to create community impact along with that performance with purpose that I was talking about. What they did was they developed a new product, okay, which would completely fit the need of this market in Bangladesh or Senegal. A lot of the people there suffer from malnutrition. So what they did was they came up with a product like fortified yogurt for the local population so it can give instant protein intake at a very high level, which can combat problems like malnutrition and dehydration through their product. And they came up with this one carton pouches. It was called Shakti Pocket, which was made of these, like again, we said, high fortified local grains that you eat it and it gives you the dose of protein and carbohydrates that your body really needs to make it completely well nutritioned. So, and these could be stored. So they also realized that there is warehousing facility that's not available there. People do not have, the conveniences of having what do you call it, refrigerators. And if they have refrigerators, there is power outage, so the refrigerator doesn't work and things go bad. So they came up with these products that could be stored at room temperature and doesn't go bad. So it doesn't need refrigeration. Now that has been such a successful and efficient model, one of capital development, of course, because they're selling their products, but also on how it's benefiting the community. So they were very thoughtful and innovative about the kind of product they were introducing and not just like a one cookie cutter product. Then they introduced these micro small factories, right? Completely using renewable energies so that it wasn't polluting the local areas. It wasn't using too much of the water resources or this and that, which are already in lack, right? In scarcity in these countries. They used renewable resources so that they could function these factories. The Grameen Danone partnership has been extremely successful and it has been extremely effective with tons of possibilities for even profitability for Danone, which otherwise somebody from outside would have looked at it as like, I will never enter this market because I don't think there's any profitability there. They were able to turn it around by creating innovation in their product. So what are the steps we can suggest to our startups for effective social innovation? So the first step that we can tell them is to always try and partner and collaborate with people and with organizations who are already working at the grassroots level for our target audience, so that we can have a much wider and larger reach. Alone, you can make a trickle effect. Together, you can make a much larger impact. So if there are non-profits that are already working in this particular space that you're creating a product or service in, can you collaborate with them, create a win-win between the two, and disseminate your product or service to a much larger mass who can benefit from it in a much shorter time, right? Two, you have to back up your mission financially. You have to become financially sustainable and independent, completely self-reliant, so that you're not waiting for a grant or you're not waiting for some funding to really make your startup happen or your goals happen. You can do it on your own, and that's what your mission needs to be. It should not be just raising funds. It should be, how do I become financially self-reliant for my company? And if I get funds, I make a larger impact. But at least if I don't get funds, I'm not stressing out. I'm still able to pay all my staff salaries, because that's another good you're doing. You're creating employment. You're running livelihoods. You're running homes for people. Clearly define the business goals that your business unit is going to further. Have a complete strategic business plan. How am I going to do? What am I going to do? And by when am I going to do it? Just like any other enterprise would do it. A clear strategy to measure your impact. The rules, how are we going to communicate? What will be our branding? And what will be our accountability to our stakeholders? Whether somebody who's funded me, I'm accountable to them. Somebody who's mentoring me, I'm accountable to them. Somebody who is working for me, I'm accountable for them. The people I'm making an impact towards, the community, I'm accountable to them. So how am I going to measure and communicate this accountability? And how am I going to see it for myself, how I'm growing and the impact that I'm making? And then create those goals and challenges that your organization is there to solve. Now we'll come towards technological innovations. So one of the biggest revolution or the biggest innovation that has happened in the technology segment that I could think of, and I think has made a really big difference in my life also personally, has been renewable energy, right? Now, what renewable energy? It includes things like you have wind turbines, like alternate sources of energy. You have solar power, you have geothermal energy, a lot of these things, right, that we're trying to harness, which is not going to deplete over time. And we can create energy out of it so that the entire planet can have equal opportunity to power and sustainable power that doesn't harm the resources that we have been gifted with and that will not deplete those resources, right? So one of the things that if you see the social innovation that has been enabled through technology. So one of the I will come up with the technological innovation also, which I wrote about, which is here, that when we do it together, what are we going to do? But just taking an example here and discussing with you all, say you see a lot of battery powered vehicles, right? So you see Morris Garage, they've come up with the battery powered vehicles. You see Tata. Most of the cars are now moving towards electric vehicles. It's more sustainable. It doesn't release toxic emissions into the air, so it protects the environment. It doesn't create noise pollution, and at the same time, it's clean, right? And I personally, for the last 3 years, have been driving an EV, and now I can't even, I don't think I've, of course, in 3 years, I've never visited a petrol pump, but I feel so good every time I drive my car because I know that in my own way, I'm making a very small contribution towards keeping this environment a little bit more healthier and cleaner by making a choice to get an electric vehicle versus a petrol or a diesel vehicle. So in our own ways, we have been able to adapt to these technological innovations that have come through lots of research, lots of trials, lots of testing, and that they've been brought to the market for the consumers to really use and benefit from. So today, if I'm not going to a petrol pump, imagine how much money I'm saving every time I would have had to need, I would have needed to fill up a full tank of fuel, right? Given how expensive petrol has become or diesel has become. In the same way, now when we talk of social innovation, which is enabled or empowered through technology, it a very good example for that would be, and I've been working with a lot of startups who are working in the agro industry, is how technology innovation has empowered farmers in the rural area, right? Just simply using their mobile phone. They don't have laptops, they don't have computers, they don't know how to use it, but they all know how to use a mobile phone. And everyone has a mobile phone today. And the advent of making mobile phones so inexpensive and accessible to the masses has changed the way, the dynamics of the way things work in our economy, right? In the rural sector too. So everyone has a multimedia phone. Now they are able to regulate the irrigation pumps entirely from their mobile phone, sitting in their house through an app. That is the power of technology for a farmer. That sitting at home, not having to go in the heat or late night to his farm, he can still regulate the irrigation, or he can create standardized times when the water needs to go into the field or not. All of that can be done simply with a button on the mobile. That's it. And that's how technology has enabled social innovation in this. A lot of the farmers now have apps which basically help them to sell their produce. So if they have, say, produced 100 quintals of wheat and they want to sell 95 quintals, they can put the entire 95 quintals in a farming marketplace app and get a fair market price for the produce without any middlemen being involved and sell it directly to the seller. What it does for them is they don't have to go to the market, they don't have to haggle, they don't have to beg somebody and then somebody taking out some looks on them. There is no transportation cost in taking and then bringing it back. Now they can do everything. Sellers and manufacturers meet at a marketplace. Deals are done. Prices are transparent. They know they're getting fair price for their produce. And yes, everyone benefits from it. So that's the power of technology, where now into the rural segment, right? And that has really created very strong social impact into their lives. Other major changes that you may have seen in the sector and you will see in your startups that they will start to bring in is biomedical innovations, healthcare innovations. A lot of startups that I have been, kind of reviewing and working with, they are very concerned about road safety. What can we do? Because there's so many road accidents in India. People don't adhere to safety rules, traffic rules. How can we reduce the traffic situation in India, make it more healthy, more sustainable, more structured? People are working on advanced communications. So right now we have video calling. Can we really have like holographic calling where you can actually see the person standing and you feel it's in real time when you converse and not just a screen? So people are coming up with the most innovative ideas to change the way communication is done. Healthcare is provided, safety is created for the people in the community. How do we increase the soil and farm productivity? How can we make our food more healthy? How can we create technology that can automatically grade the quality of the produce that comes into the market so that people who are buying are aware what they are buying, how much pesticide is there, what kind of chemical was used, and can there be a technology that senses that so that we know what we are eating? Because we all know right now how cancer is spreading, and it's not just through the environmental pollution or anything. A lot of it, they say through researches, is coming because of the fertilizers and the chemicals and the kind of the toxins that have moved into our soil base. So how do we prevent that and how do we change that? Because once people are aware, customers, that, oh, this is a very toxified product, I'm not going to buy it. The farmers themselves will be motivated to ensure that they are using more organic ways of cultivation of chemicals rather than using toxic chemicals to produce, because then there are no buyers for it. So can we come up with a technology like this that can sense that and rate it and grade it? So in my entire theory, research, and reading a lot about social innovation and technology innovation, what I have come to an understanding of is that both are very powerful elements on their own. They both can stand alone individually in their own ways, but when they come together and they work together as a force, when they work together as a source of enablement to each other, they can create a large, big bang impact in this world. A large scale impact that can improve lives, that can create some really amazing environmental impacts in this world, and it can create win-win situations for all. So both stand to benefit with interlap of each other. So social innovation, when it is fostered and enabled by technological innovations, it can have a much larger, more pervasive impact into the society, and it can empower people in a much better way. And the same way, when technological innovations can be used for social changes, they can really revolutionize and they can create impact really where it is needed. So they must work in synergy to really, really be very strongly effective. So I'm coming to my last slide, and then we will just have an open interactive discussion. There is faculty and as facilitators, and I include myself, I include each one of you, we are fostering an entrepreneurial spirit, which involves creating an environment in which all ideas are treated equally with the same inclusiveness. They all are welcome, whether they are tech ideas, non-tech ideas, something that we can't comprehend, but somebody's come up with. All of them must be given equal importance. They must be nurtured equally to at least see which ones fruit up beautifully and become into big trees that provide shade to a large number of people. And if certain startups don't make it, they are unable to take it to the next level, they are unable to sustain it financially, It is fine. Instead of saying you didn't make it, which I think is such a wrong word when we use the word failure, we say we learned so much and you're more mature for it. Because now you know what not to do in your second startup, or now you know that if you decide to move into the corporate world or to work for another startup, how you're going to do things differently because you've learned from your own experience. And to make them understand that solutions come through diversity of opinion. There is no one right answer, or there's no one right way to reach a destination. There are lots of ways to go, and each one may choose a different route. But the destination will be that one point, and we all will reach it. But if we start to diss people that, oh, you took that route and that's not the correct one, then you're going to make them give up on the race or give up on their journey middle of the way. We have to include diversity of opinion. We have to respect each other's opinion, each other's way of doing things, each other's way of delivery, collaborate so that we can create a very nurturing ecosystem for startups, especially student startups, to thrive and to really make a difference in this world, because the future belongs to them and they have to take care of it through their innovations and disruptions. And we are just catalysts for those innovations and disruptions. So let's be those really strong catalysts. Like we see yeast, right? If you've ever seen yeast, and how it starts to bubble and becomes a catalyst for making your bread or anything that has to be needed, right? And it gives the rising. Same way, we give the rising effect to the startups. We are the yeast in the system that's going to help it rise. We catalyze them. So let's try and give them as much support. And of course, any questions you have are more than welcome. I personally am a very, very big advocate of entrepreneurship. I teach and I run boot camps for middle school students, for for high school students, for university students, for rural youth, for homemakers to become entrepreneurs, because I personally believe that entrepreneurship is one area, one tool that sees no ethnicity boundaries, that doesn't see any language as a barrier. So you could be speaking French, I could be speaking English. I could come from a very marginalized background, you could come from a very background, but we all get equal opportunity because it's all about an idea and how well you execute. You're not judged by which language you know, by which house you live in, by what you have and which fancy institute you went to. You're only judged by the idea that you have and the method you have to execute it to make a difference. And that's why it creates a level playing field for everyone in this society. And that's why I think it is just so empowering. And if we teach it at a school level, then we are creating creative minds. We are creating frugal minds who can do jugaad banti, who can do more with less resources. And that is the beauty of really building businesses, that how can we do more with less, right? So I will just open myself up to any questions, and Dr. Chandra, you can just regulate it from here.
Thank you, ma'am. So that was a wonderful session. So I hope there is a very, very thin line between social innovation and technology innovation. So what is the basic factor that decides the thin line, madam? Is it the target group, that means the customers, or is it the innovation that the team develops? What is that exact parameter that differentiates social innovation and technology innovation?
I think the differentiation comes in the way they want to deliver it. See, how do you want to deliver? So there are enough social innovations out there which don't use technology. And it could be because the founder or the person who's running it is not comfortable with technology.
Correct.
So, okay. But I think technology becomes a very strong enabler for a larger impact. And it is for everything. I say anything. You take a educational business. Now you look at it during COVID, right? No school earlier which had done online education, whether it was in the rural area or the urban area, CBSE, ICSE, IP, we had never thought of our children studying online. And that became a way of life. Everyone pivoted. So whatever the schools were doing, and these called themselves as social innovation, the way we teach, the way we nurture our children, they pivoted and they could use technology to enable much more effective education and not just put a full stop to it and reach a much wider audience.
Correct, correct. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Dear participants, now the session is open for question and answers. I hope you enjoyed the session. So if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box or you can unmute and talk to Nidhi Bhatia. Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes. Hi.
Thank you, ma'am, for a very informative session. So can there be any such model, like it can be combination of hybrid of social and technological innovation, ma'am?
I think most of the models that I see now is a hybrid version. Because all social innovation, and especially when it comes from universities, when it's coming from more of the younger generation, they all are using technology as a very core way to integrate the innovation and bring it to the masses.
Can I get any one example, ma'am, for this category? Any successful?
Say something like this, right? Like I was giving you the example of the agro-tech, right?
Okay.
So somebody wanted to make sure that the farmers get a fair price for their products. And the farmers don't have to travel from, their village to a very far away city, which quintals and quintals of rice, and they don't have a way to know which is the right price, so whatever the middleman says to them, it's 20 rupees, they'll take 20 rupees. How do they see it? Somebody saw that as a huge problem. And they said, I want to remove this problem and create more transparency. So they created these agro marketplaces, and that was a social innovation, where they said that my marketplace is going to make money because when this transaction happens, I get a commission. Okay. So it's a social enterprise. It's for profit. They make money, but it's for a social cause, because what is it doing? It's enabling farmers to get fair price for their produce and to make sure that there are enough buyers for that, but for the farm produce. The things don't go wasted because they couldn't go and find enough buyers, right? That there are sellers who come to that marketplace. Sellers also don't have to look at different farmers. They go to the marketplace, they see what are the things that are listed there, how many quintals which farmer has, they buy, it's sent. It's all managed through the logistics of the agro marketplace. They get the commission, the farmers are happy, they get a fair price, they get transparency of pricing. They don't have to travel from city to city trying to sell in the heat or in whatever circumstances. And at the same time, the sellers are benefiting because they are getting a fair grade from a large availability of farmers. Instead of just 2 farmers coming to them, now they have access to 500 farmers who are listed on that marketplace. So that's social innovation. That is a hybrid model with technological innovation.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? You can put it in the chat box, or you can unmute and talk. I'd like to show you one innovation towards this.
I'm just going to stop sharing.
Enterprises. Yeah. So I hope you can see this. So yes. This is the incredible innovations that was that helps rural women to get the waters especially in Maharashtra villages in drought-prone areas. So this is one such good example, like where people used to carry huge weights of this binde and everything. Now it has been converted into the roller drums. Okay, so this was one of the wonderful social innovation I have seen recent times. And the capacity of each drum is 45 liters, and they can carry, and it is a rollable model. So very easy to access.
And it's very inexpensive. In fact, now that Dr. Chandra has explained this, I'll tell you about this really amazing innovation that I saw. I was in the US and it was there in the Science and Technology Museum. So it started with, I think it's called Vestera. I forget the name really. It's a Swiss-based company, and they realized that a lot of the diseases that were spreading in Africa, right? The founder was in Africa for some habitat work, and he realized a lot of the diseases were waterborne because the water was so polluted. So he said, but people need to drink, right? And
Yes.
how do you remove this impurity? So he came up with this filter, which was so cheap. All you had to do was, it was like this thin filter, put it in any glass of water or a matka of water or a jug of water, and it will completely pull out the impurities from it, make the water completely clean, whether it is like a nala water or this water or that water, and make it into drinkable water. And what that did was it reduced drastically the problems, health issues that were coming out of waterborne diseases in children, in women, in adults, right, at large. And that was a really amazing innovation. I think it's called Life Straw. Yeah, the product is called Life Straw. So they came up initially with that. Now they have different kinds of products. They also have these glasses, jars that you put water and it just completely filters it. So it was very innovative. So see, you saw a social problem and you said, I want to do something with it. But how am I going to do it? Then you use technology, innovation, your bio innovation, whatever it is, to find a solution to that problem. Then you use technology to reduce the cost, because if the innovation is there but it's very expensive and a normal person in the village cannot afford it, then what good is your innovation? Because the person you made it for cannot afford to buy it, cannot afford to use it. So you also have to make it ready for the market that you want to cater to, affordable for that market, so they can have access to it and then use it and then bring about the change.
Correct. Exactly, ma'am. Correct. Yeah. So, any participants, you have questions? I think they are good with the session. So
Saturday afternoon, I don't blame them.
correct. So here we work 6 days a week, madam. So we do.
Okay.
So we never mind working on Saturdays also.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there are no questions, let us wind up the session. Okay. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your time, insights, and the knowledge. And very informative it is and knowledgeable. And I think most of our participants has got good enough knowledge on different types of innovations, how they have to inculcate the technology into the social angle also. So thank you very much for your time and looking forward for such wonderful sessions in near future also. Thank you very much, ma'am.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the teachers. I think you are doing such a wonderful job in nurturing this ecosystem. And I really, anytime you need any resource help, feel free to take my number from Dr. Chandra, and you can access me on WhatsApp or send me an email. If I'm able to help, I'll be more than happy to help. I can even conduct sessions. And also, I wanted to request you all, I wish I had, if you give me a second, I'm going to see if I have that thing. I'm going to share with you all. There are some really amazing startup stories. I started a podcast, so I could really bring forth some of the really amazing social innovations from around the world and service innovations that people are doing. And that can be something that you can even tell your students to really subscribe to the channel and keep seeing those podcasts. Because a lot of times when you hear other people who've already been through the journey, that's my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to it. So every time a new podcast is uploaded, you'll get a notification. But I'm telling you, some of the stories that you hear, or the students will hear, they will realize, okay, I wanted to work in the space. Somebody I've interviewed from Africa, she's an advisor on how to bring investments into the rural areas. Now, when you hear the story, it gives you ideas. Oh, I can also do that. How to do it. And then you can connect with those people and get some really good mentorship. So I'm just trying to bring that global resource network through podcasts, through their journeys, so people can understand what their journeys are and then connect with the right people who can be their mentors from anywhere in the world.
So wonderful. I've been going through your channel actually. Yeah, that was wonderful. And I request like everyone can see that there are, I think.
Yeah, and I've got some really, in fact, one of the podcasts that is going to come up is the author of Ikigai. I've been trying to connect with him to get him on the podcast to understand what inspired him to write that book. Because a lot of, see, entrepreneurship is not necessarily just technology or innovation or a product. It can be something completely different, which is in the artistic way. It could be like how Kindle came about, right? How do you revolutionize the way books are read? How do you revolutionize maybe the way books are written or way the books are understood, right? So there are a lot of ways in which innovation can happen. We just have to keep ourselves open to it.
Correct.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your time. And yeah, so participants, we are signing off this session and we will meet on Monday again. Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
See you. See you. Yeah.